This Guy's Garage. Like and subscribe.
In the correspondence to the committee, I believe, the PCO, you mentioned that there were approximately 265,000 records representing about 152,000 unique documents that were tabled before the Review Commission. Now, the Commission only posted about 8,900 of those on their website, which means you guys did that, PCO did that, correct?
We worked with them. They ran their website.
Okay, fair enough. Now, so can you explain to the Canadian public who might be asking why the Review Commission had access to 143,000 documents which Canadians never existed? Now, I understand some of them might be sensitive in nature, or as indicated otherwise, but why they don't have access to them today, and whether you, as the PCO, can determine what status they're at, what exists, like what are those documents are, and why they haven't been able to be accessed by Canadians.
So thank you very much for your question. Perhaps I'll give a little bit of context in terms of our role and the role of the Commission. So during the Commission, they're completely independent. They run their information management. They run their internal email. We provide support. We provide them systems, and we provide them advice. At the end of a commission, effectively, we're handed those files in electronic form, paper form, but there's not necessarily a lot of information about what's in the individual files. So to actually know what's in them, we'd have to open them, kind of go through them, and make some determinations. At a high level, what I can tell you is that within the 152,000 documents that you mentioned, there's a mix of, I'd say, 4 broad categories. There's the documents that the Government of Canada provided, and that could be a mix of cabinet confidences, top secret information, and protected B information. That's about 31,000 unique files. In addition to that, there were 88,000 files that were productions from other parties. And so, as you know, there were a number of parties withstanding who submitted documents. And so this is the documents that were submitted by, whether it be provinces or police services or independent citizens that are contained in there. In addition, there's the individual documents that have been created by the Commission itself. And so there's 22,000 files that we have determined that were created by the Commission itself. And then there's internal documents. Think of HR, finance, those internal administrative documents, about 11,000. And so in keeping with what's been done in past commissions, there's a website created by the Commission with the final report and the information that it deems the public should have access to. Just like any... And the Commission makes that determination.
Okay, thank you.
And then,
so I have limited time.
I apologize.
And I appreciate some of that. I want to get to kind of something that you said in your testimony that I found very helpful. So at our committee meeting a couple of weeks ago, we adopted a motion respecting the prioritization of document translation requests. Now, that motion was left somewhat open-ended, so we could benefit from your testimony today. So I was pleased to hear that you had some suggestions on what you've done already to help us as a committee determine what documents we might need, what might not need. And can you explain that a little bit further for us? I know you just brushed over it, but you've created a catalog, some items that you think would be important for our deliberations today. Can you just explain that a bit further for us, please?
What we've tried to create is a bit of a sense of what's in those documents. And so I gave you those 4 large categories. Within that, we can give subcategories of the types of documents. We have found that we have the ability, depending on the database used, so that the government documents are in what's called Ringtail, which is a legal software that we use for many different purposes. It's quite easy for us to determine what's in those documents. We would still have to review some of them before releasing them for reasons that you appreciate. In the other documents that are contained in other types of databases, what we can find is a file name, potentially the number of pages. We are finding generally the file name would be, email to so-and-so or document related to X. And so we think that could be helpful to the committee if they were to see information like that.
In an index. You're talking about some sort of an index.
An index
what
defined a certain way.
Okay, fair. Now, you were talking the 8,000 some documents that what's in the that are on the website? Or are you talking a broader range?
So the 8,000 on the website would be evidence that was submitted in one language or another. We know what that is. We can translate that. We've told you what the cost is. In addition, for the other documents within the 152,000, we believe we could work with the committee to come up with at least a list of this is what the documents are. And
I think it'll come out in other evidence. Member of Parliament, Mr. Nakvi, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I want to thank the witnesses there. The gentleman from PCO, sorry, I can't remember your name right now. Can you just finish your thought? I want to make sure that we hear your answer.
I appreciate the opportunity to finish the thought. We could give these file names. We believe in some cases they would be quite helpful in determining what's in the document, and you may select of that 152,000, perhaps there's only 5,000 that are truly of interest, and then we can focus our attention on translating and reviewing those documents rather than this really large group of documents that, as my colleague mentioned, would take years and large amounts of taxpayer-funded contributions to be able to translate. So our goal is really to help you narrow down where you would like to focus attention and then to do everything we can to get that to you in an expedited fashion.
You know how things work. How is it that there was no simultaneous translation and people producing the translations of testimony every day? Didn't you provide that as advice?
In terms of the use of official languages, we would absolutely, and are for the current commission, recommending that any public hearings have simultaneous interpretation as part of that. And so to your point, there was simultaneous interpretation as I understand it. I believe you're going a step further to say it should not only be translated, but there should be the equivalent of kind of the blues that come out from this committee. That is not a requirement of committees or of commissions, and it's not something they have chosen to do.
But it is a commission of inquiry. It's an institution created by an order that falls under the Official Languages Act. It was your responsibility to support the Commission of Inquiry, to make sure that documents was translated, that testimony was translated, that everything on the website was translated, which was not the case.
In terms of supporting the commission and all commissions, and I would echo what you said about I worked with Judge Rouleau, and he is a fantastic human being and was wonderful to work with. I would say there's a limit to what we can do in terms of support. We don't dictate how they run their commission. We provide support to help them implement what they would like to do.
Senator Carignan, your time is up. We'll move.
And I hate to be rude, but listening to it for the last period of time, it seems to be a bit of a revolving door. Let's get by who's guilty or who didn't do their job. Let's get on with getting the problem solved. I'm sorry to be so blunt, but I mean, God, I spent 30 years of my life running businesses, and I'd have probably some of you in front of me in a private office sort of asking these questions before we even got in here. Because we spent time. What have we accomplished?
I appreciate your question, Senator.
And I'm sorry to be blunt, but...
Not at all. I appreciate the honest question. I think we have tried to provide a proposed path early on in the testimony. I think respecting the fact, maybe just to differentiate from the business, we are not necessarily here to be your advisors. We are here to answer questions, and ultimately you have a team that provides you advice. If you were asking me my proposed approach forward, it would be for us to provide you with the index and file names, as I mentioned. I think there's a decision point that needs to be made at that point. Does that need to be translated, or are the generic names of emails enough for the clerk of the committee or others to start to go through it? So I think that's a first point. And then the next piece would be, based on that, translated or not, if you were to highlight either here are the types of emails we would like, or for example, we can say where evidence originated from, you're most interested in information, for example, from a certain province or from a certain organization. If you help us narrow it, we could then say we've went from 152,000 documents to 5,000 documents, let's say. And then we could work with our partners to work on expediting that translation, our reviews, and that sort of thing.
My observation is to refresh my colleague Yasser Nakvi's commentary regarding that he's proud of a government that believes in bilingualism. Well, I think, quite frankly, all 338 parliamentarians believe in that. But to refresh his memory, thanks to Sir John A. Macdonald and Sir George Etienne Cartier, the British North American Act allowed bilingualism in Parliament. The Translation Bureau was the creation of R.B. Bennett's government, and simultaneous interpretation was introduced in Parliament by John Diefenbaker's government. And the right to simultaneous interpretation in Parliament was enshrined in the Official Languages Act by Brian Mulrooney's government. So I'm very thankful for previous Conservative governments that really enshrined bilingualism in this country. That's my observation. My question to the PCO. 31,000 documents from Justin Trudeau's government were before the Rouleau Commission. How many of that 31,000 never saw the light of day?
I'm not sure what documents are on the website. I would have to see. I think we would have to agree on a definition of never saw the light of day. They were provided to the Commission of Inquiry, who reviewed them and had unprecedented access to cabinet confidences and top secret documents to do their work. And ultimately, they encapsulated their conclusions from reading those documents in that 2,000-page report that is on the website.
Glaring exception to that was the legal opinion that the Trudeau government relied upon to invoke the Emergencies Act. In fact, it was Justice Rouleau who essentially questioned former Attorney General David Lametti and essentially said, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to just take your word for it? And David Lametti's response was, yes.
You made a comment about the Evidence, Canada Evidence Act, or under the Evidence Act, and you weren't sure that the evidence only need to be unilingual. Did I misunderstand you, or can you clarify your understanding of the provision of providing of evidence to a commission in this case, whether or not it was only required to be unilingual, or does it have to be bilingual?
My understanding of the Canada Evidence Act, as it's been explained to me, and I will preface every answer with I am not a lawyer and do not wish to entertain a legal debate with a number of lawyers in the room. My understanding is that the Canada Evidence Act says that you have to post it, or you should post it in the language it was submitted in, and my understanding is part of the rationale behind that is because the translation could be seen as altering the evidence.
So you're saying posted. So that's an interesting comment. It's not a matter of just having the evidence presented to the commission. You're talking the actual posting of that on the website or in a document? Is that?
I'm saying my understanding is that when it's posted on a website, and just received, it needs to be kept in the language that it is received in, that it's not translated.
Okay, again, so what would be considered evidence under the Canada Evidence Act is a pretty broad term. So I'm just, thank you. I wasn't aware of that. I was just trying to get some
and I would add, if I could, witnesses were given the option to appear in the language of their choice as well.
Yep,
and so some witnesses appeared in English, some appeared in French.